Chapter 11. This is Vice Purveyor Slink, said the hawkish man on the dingy communications monitor. His eyes were narrow, suspicious. Even in the static-laden image, he looked ancient and imposing. This is Listening Post Alpha 17 for the Master Purveyor, Lisette was nearly shouting so that the old equipment would pick up her voice. Barmer sat next to her, practically quivering. He was so nervous and excited. Yes, Slink said, waving her off. We have confirmed your identity, Alpha 17. Out with it. I was told you have eyes only. Yes, which is why I was under the impression that I would be speaking with the Master Purveyor himself, Vice Purveyor. Commander Lisette, Slink said, his eyes flicking off screen as if to read her name. You will tell me, and I will tell the Master Purveyor if what you're calling about warrants it. Lisette pursed her lips, then continued. The Vice Purveyor was still her superior. Of course, she said, and she keyed in a message packet to be sent to the Vice Purveyor. We've picked up a transmission from inside the exclusion zone. It's been verified. Slink's face disappeared from the comm monitor. Barmer rubbed his hands together for warmth, then brought them up to his mouth and breathed on them. See if you can get them to fix our power core, he said to Lisette in a hushed tone. Or maybe get us off this rust can. With what we have, I'd say a promotion might be in order, Lisette said, cracking a nervous smile. Maybe a transfer. Slink's head popped back into view. Your transmission has been received, he said, all business. End transmission. Wait, said Barmer off to the side. That's it? Slink's grainy image stayed on the screen, frowning. What was that? He said. Nothing, sir, Lisette said, trying to cover, and glanced at Barmer to shut his mouth. It's just... Barmer looked like he was about to speak again, but Lisette cut him off. I'm so sorry, to bother you with this, Vice Purveyor, but while we have you on the comms, sir, our power core has been at 37% for the past month, and, well, we're downright freezing in here, sir. I was wondering if you might be able to send someone out to fix it for us. There was a long pause from the Vice Purveyor. His face was blank, and his eyes didn't blink. For a moment, Lisette thought perhaps the stupid con systems had gone out, and their transmission had been frozen. She was about to slap the screen to unstick it when Slink spoke again. Your power core shall be dealt with, he said. Barmer whooped for joy, and Lisette allowed herself to break into a broad smile. Thank you, sir, she said. Thank you. Blessed be the stuff. Slink did not smile. End transmission, he said, and his image winked off the small screen. Barmer leaned back into his chair in relief. Oh, stars, I'm happy you said something, he said. I'm happy that you didn't ruin the whole thing, she shot back at him. The Vice is not someone you want to piss off. Oh, come on. It turned out fine. No thanks to you, she said. Barmer let out a pff and closed his eyes. It's going to be so grand, he said. I'm going to sleep naked, I think. When he didn't get a response from Lisette in vehement denial of that idea, he opened an eye. His superior was staring at a flashing indicator on their control panel. Did they fix it already? Barmer said, sitting up to get a look. The indicator was unfortunately not flashing that their core had been fixed. It was flashing for the exact opposite reason. There was a shutdown in progress that had been remotely triggered. A second later, every light in lonely Listening Post Alpha 17 shut off and did not turn back on, no matter how much its two lonely human inhabitants tried to rack their freezing brains or scrambled to make repairs. If they'd had more time, perhaps they might have been able to get down to the core and restart the reaction chamber, but they didn't have that much time. Alpha 17 had already been so close to freezing, and there were only two of them to huddle together. Perhaps if it had been more than just the two of them. They lasted less than 15 minutes. Someone at the Authority headquarters, thousands of light years away, had marked Alpha 17 down as having been decommissioned on authorization from the Vice Purveyor, with no loss of property, or person worth mentioning. Chapter 12. Actually, one pause here. Just want to make sure this is still, still looking good. Awesome. Chapter 12. The Vreen bared a mouthful of slobbery, arm-length teeth and lunged at Petrick, who was still the furthest forward. Petrick rolled onto his side. The beast reared up on its back legs in response and spread its winged forelegs out fully, partially blocking out the moons. It cast a nightmarish shadow across Suzy and Barry, whose faces had gone completely white. The Vreen stretched its massive jaws wide and let out another bellowing screech into the night. Petrick looked desperately for a route of escape, a weapon, anything. He finally spotted something that he had to check twice to believe what it was. He glanced back at his friends just in time to see Suzy wave to get the fearsome creature's attention. Her fists were balled to hide their trembling, and she was puffing out her chest as far as it would go. "Wait!" he called out. She froze instinctively. "Don't move!" he called to her. The Vreen stood there, wings out wide, and growled. It clicked its teeth together and drooled, unsure. Petrick pushed himself up off the ground and brought himself to a full standing position, directly between his friends and the beast. He took a step forward. "What are you doing?" Suzy whisper-screamed. The Vreen bellowed again and set its feet into the dirt, looking ready to lunge. Petrick cringed, a reflex. "Just trust me," he said. With that, the Vreen lunged its enormous body forward directly at the three of them, and Barry screamed a loud, long scream. The kind of scream you would scream when the end was imminent, and you wanted every living thing in a 100-mile radius to know that your untimely death was happening at that very moment, and it was not okay. After an indeterminable amount of time, Barry realized first that he'd instinctively shut his eyes in the face of his impending doom. He realized second that he was still yelling, which meant that he was very much alive, so he stopped and opened his eyes. Beside him, Suzy was pale and trembling from a response very similar to Barry's in the face of death. Her palms hurt. She'd been squeezing her fists so hard. In front of them, Petrick was grinning. The Vreen was gone. "What?" bumbled Barry as he scrambled back up to his feet. "What happened?" "Where did it go?" Suzy asked, equally breathless. "Did you scare it off?" "No more than you did," he said, still grinning. He walked forward a few paces and kicked at a lump down in the grass. Suddenly, the Vreen popped back into existence from thin air, snarling and massive. Barry and Suzy instinctively jumped back, but a microsecond later, they noticed something was off. How could the beast have just suddenly appeared like that? That wasn't possible. Petrick turned and walked back toward his frightened, curious friends, and passed right through the beast as if it weren't even there. Barry made a noise of astonishment, and Suzy's mouth dropped open. "How? What?" Barry stammered. "It's not really here, is it?" asked Suzy, taking a tentative step forward. Petrick shook his head with that big grin on his face, and he passed his hand through the mirage, showing them the line of light that appeared on his hand as he did so. He then pointed back toward the mound in the grass that he'd kicked moments earlier. "It was luck, actually," he confessed. "When I rolled, it gave me just the right angle to see that it was a light projection coming from back there. My dad has shown me things like this before, in my dreams. I never thought I'd see a real one, though." "But why is it out here?" Barry asked. "I think it's like an alarm or security system," Petrick offered with a look around. "To scare away any animals or people, maybe?" "Scare them away from what?" Suzy asked. "That," Petrick answered, and the other two followed to where he was pointing. A few more paces beyond the hidden projector was a small set of stairs, grown over and concealed in the tall grass, that sank down into the ground. The three children shuffled curiously toward the inviting stairs, and they found a panting Clark sitting patiently at the bottom of them. He barked happily in greeting to them, as if calling them down. They obliged, and at the bottom of the staircase, they found a surprisingly large metal door set inside a wall of dirt. It was shut. Petrick bent down and scooped Clark up into his arms. "Gotcha, you little devil," he said, and Clark licked his face, acting like his old self. "You think he was leading us here?" Barry asked in a whisper. "He must have been," Suzy whispered. She was sizing up the ominous metal door. "Why are we whispering?" Petrick asked of the other two. Barry answered for both of them by offering a shrug. "You gonna open the door? It is a door, right?" he asked. Petrick nodded. "It's all metal, but yeah, it's a door all right. And doors are meant for opening. Or for shutting, to keep nosy people out," Barry muttered. Petrick stood squarely in front of it with Clark in hand and pushed on its flat metal surface. It wouldn't budge. He frowned and pushed harder. It still wouldn't budge. "Maybe you need to knock," offered Suzy. Petrick raised his free hand and then paused for a second. "You think it's a good idea?" he asked. "I mean, what if—" "Just do it," Suzy cut him off. "We were led all the way out here. Someone must be expecting us." "Whoever someone is," Barry grumbled, "could be a pack of hungry coyotes in there for all we know, and Clark was feeling like a family reunion." Petrick had other family reunions on his mind, and felt suddenly that if he were to pause any longer, he might never muster up the courage to do it. So he just shut his eyes and stabbed his clenched fist forward to rap the door 3 times. It felt cold, damp, and unnatural, completely unlike any other door on Indikar. This door was fabricated from materials refined so far beyond their natural state, they were entirely different to the touch. The sound of his small fist knocking upon this artificial surface was dull and hollow. It was impossible to tell anything about what might lie beyond the door. The 3 waited for a moment after the knocks, and nothing happened. Clark began to get impatient in his master's arms and started to wiggle. After a moment, it got to the point where it was too much for Petrick to handle, and he let the pup plop down onto his 4 furred feet. What happened next made Barry scream a little. Out from the bottom of the door flicked what looked like a lollipop, with a gray cube on its end. The square end of the device glowed a dull orange for a moment, and Clark trotted right up to it. Before Petrick could stop him, he touched his nose to the glowing end and froze, completely statue still. "Oh no!" cried Suzy, but Petrick stopped her from moving forward. "Wait," he said. "I think he's okay." He couldn't explain how, but he knew his furry friend was fine. Sure enough, after the briefest of moments, Clark relaxed, and the gray lollipop snapped back into the recesses of the door again. As soon as it did, there was a dull thunk. The metal door released inward ever so slightly. The trio looked at each other for the consensus that indeed, yes, they were in fact going through this mystery door. Each of the 3 children inhaled a deep breath. Petrick stuck out his hand and pushed on the door. It only opened another tiny crack. The door was heavy. "Help me, guys," he said, as he tried to push again. They dutifully joined in. The door groaned wider, and the 3 disappeared inside. And that's the end of chapter 12. All right, you guys. We'll have to wait till tomorrow to find out what is beyond that door. And what's going on out in space with these poor people that just froze in Listening Post and Slink and the Authority and all of that. Thank you so much for joining. As always, you guys, it means the world to me that you're doing this with me. I hope you're enjoying it. We're cranking along with the book, man. A little bit of a shorter reading today, I guess, but that's how these chapters they'll kind of go like that, I think. Some of them are going to be longer, some of them will be shorter. Yeah, let's see. We've got 13 and 14 tomorrow. I think that might get us to almost 100 pages in. Yeah, so we got a decent amount to read tomorrow, so that's exciting. All right, well, thank you guys. I hope your week is going well. I hope everything with the recording went okay. Looks like I didn't blast my microphone at all. I used my microphone to record a podcast last night, and I messed up my levels. So hopefully it sounded about the same it did yesterday and all of the recordings before it. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about the story, feel free to let me know. Obviously, it's hard for me to respond while I'm doing this. But if you're watching the replay or just want to leave them for me, I'll answer them after I get everything saved out and closed out, and I can write a response. But thank you very much. I hope you guys are doing great, and I will see you all tomorrow. See you then.